Dad wrote, "Don't contact us. Don't come over. You're done." My sister liked the message. I responded, "Fine. I'll stop the auto payments tomorrow morning." By midnight, the chat exploded with missed calls and angry texts. My name is Abigail. I'm 29. And this is my story about how my dad sent me a 10-word message that cut me off from the family, how my sister applauded it, and how my quiet reply turned the whole thing into chaos before the night was over. What none of them knew was that I had just come back from lunch with Grandpa, and he was done watching them use me. The message came in at 6:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry thinking about nothing important. Then I looked down at my phone. "Don't call us. Don't visit. You're cut off. Dad." I blinked, sat there a second, and then saw my sister Lindsay Hart react to it like it was a joke between friends. She followed it up with one word. "Finally," and that told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't just Dad. It was all three of them. My mom, Lindsay, and him. They must have had a full family meeting about this. No one even tried to call before sending it. I could have said a lot. I didn't. I just typed back, "Perfect. I'll cancel the auto payments first thing tomorrow." I swear I could feel the shift from silence to panic through the phone screen, because here's what they didn't want to admit. I'd been paying for almost everything. Utilities, the internet, groceries. Some months. I covered their property taxes last December. I gave Lindsay $300 a month, just so she wouldn't call crying about needing it to finish her brand deals. My parents stopped working around the time I was in college. Dad quit his job first, then Mom a few years later. They said they were just tired of the grind and wanted peace. Somehow that peace involved me footing the bills while they lived rent-free in a house they didn't even own. They made me feel like it was my duty, like I owed it to them. The only person I ever talked to about it was Grandpa. Just the weekend before we'd gone to lunch. I hadn't meant to bring any of it up, but I did quietly, almost like I was ashamed. He listened, never interrupted. Then he told me to stop, not slow down, not reduce. So thought he was joking. He wasn't. The part one didn't know until the next day was that the house my parents lived in, the one I thought had been signed over to them years ago, was still his. He never transferred ownership. Just let them live there. Gave them a chance to be adults when they were still in their 40s. They took it as a permanent vacation. That night, after I replied to Dad's message, my phone blew up. By midnight, I had 14 missed calls and over 30 texts. Mom said I was heartless. Lindsay accused me of financial abuse. Dad texted me at 2 a.m. asking what kind of daughter abandons her family, but by then it was too late. Grandpa had already made up his mind. What happened over the next few days changed everything, not just for me, but for them, too. And they had no idea the storm that was coming. The morning after that text storm felt unreal. I barely slept, my phone buzzing half the night with missed calls, messages, and voicemails I didn't even bother listening to. Grandpa had told me to come over first thing in the morning, so I did. His house was quiet, warm, and smelled like coffee. He didn't make small talk. He didn't even ask how I was holding up. He just pushed a thick manila folder across the table and told me to open it. Inside were papers older than me, property deeds, notarized documents, tax statements. I skimmed the first few pages without really absorbing anything. Then I saw it. The address. The house my parents and sister had been living in for 12 years. My family's forever home. The one they acted like they owned, but it wasn't theirs. It was Grandpa's. It had always been Grandpa's. I looked at him speechless. He started explaining matter-of-factly. Back in 2013, my parents were supposedly in a rough patch. Dad had quit his job. Mom said she couldn't handle working anymore. Lindsay was still in college when they asked to stay at Grandpa's place for a few months. He agreed, thinking they'd get back on their feet, maybe even chip in for rent or taxes later. That was 12 years ago. They never paid a cent. Never even said thank you. Over time, they acted like the house was theirs, treating Grandpa like an annoying old man they barely tolerated during holidays. Last Christmas, when he asked if he should bring food, Mom told him to eat before coming. He never shared this with me until last weekend, when I told him I'd been quietly covering their bills. Then he showed me the last page in his folder, a legal notice of occupancy termination. Dated, signed, certified, ready to go. 3 envelopes, one for my parents, one for Lindsay, one for other adult occupants. Legally, Lindsay was a dependent tenant, and Grandpa said they'd had enough time to stand on their own. He said it was time they learned what life costs. Then he said something chilling. They won't thank you for helping them. They'll hate you for stopping. I asked if he was sure. He said he'd never been more certain. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. He wasn't doing it for me. It was the right thing. That afternoon, the letters went out. At first, silence. Then, by evening, my phone blew up. Lindsay posted the letter on her Instagram story with a crying emoji and the caption, "We're being thrown out of our home like trash." Broken heart, that's how the family found out. Not directly, but through her curated post. By dinner, calls flooded in. Aunt Julie, Uncle Tom, Cousin Megan, all confused, some angry. I told them the truth. My parents hadn't paid for their home in over a decade. I'd been covering utilities and groceries for years, and Grandpa still owned the house. He'd had enough. Julie admitted she'd wondered how they afforded their lifestyle. Megan thought they were just savvy with money. Tom wasn't surprised. Lindsay, though, kept going. That night, she left a sobbing voicemail accusing me of ruining her life. Mom sent paragraphs calling me a traitor. Dad sent 3 words. "You did this." But I hadn't. I just stopped paying. The next day, it went public. Mom escalated in a way none of us expected, dragging the extended family into the mess. I woke to a text from Megan. "Have you seen Facebook?" I hadn't checked in days. Mom's public post read, "After decades of sacrifice, we've been betrayed by someone we loved. We're being forced out of our home. Yes, our home, by lies and greed. Please respect our privacy as we navigate this." Below was a photo of the house in soft morning light, like it was some sacred shrine. Comments poured in from neighbors, distant relatives, old church friends. Disgusting. Heartbreaking. How could anyone do this to family? My name wasn't mentioned, but Lindsay's posts made sure everyone knew I was the villain. She shared a screenshot of a $200 Venmo request I'd sent for utilities, captioning it, "This is what family looks like when they only care about money." #unbelievable #hurt. Then came the DMs, strangers, cousins I hadn't seen in years, even a former babysitter calling me a parasite. I didn't respond. Grandpa did. The next morning, he emailed the entire family, titled, "Facts regarding the residence at 2485 Cedar Hollow." It was like a court document. No emotion, just facts. The property is solely owned by me, William Pierce. I allowed my son and his family to live rent-free since 2013. They haven't paid utilities, taxes, or maintenance for over a decade. My granddaughter Abigail covered these costs for 4 years without repayment or thanks. No agreement ever transferred ownership. I issued a legal 60-day notice to vacate. This was my decision alone. He ended with, "Being family doesn't exempt anyone from responsibility." That quieted some people, but not Mom. She went to the church she hadn't attended in years, stood during prayer requests, and asked for support because her kids turned against her, leaving her homeless. Mrs. Allen, my old Sunday school teacher, called Grandpa to ask what was happening. He told her the truth. She apologized. Then, something unexpected, a handwritten note slipped into my mailbox and signed, with a screenshot of a deleted Facebook post by Lindsay complaining she wouldn't get a job just because some old man wants to play judge. The note said, "You should keep this. People are watching." Someone wasn't buying their story. Then came a message from Adam Ree, a high school classmate I hadn't spoken to in 12 years. He said he'd stayed at my parents' house via Airbnb in March, recognizing the kitchen from Lindsay's stories. My parents had been secretly renting out the basement and upstairs for months. Lindsay was the host under a fake name, complete with a guest book and a Cedar Hollow retreat welcome sign. Adam sent screenshots of the listing, messages, and receipt, all tied to Lindsay's email. The photos showed Grandpa's house, rooms he never approved for renting. I told Grandpa. He didn't flinch. "Go get the guest book," he said. I texted Lindsay, saying I was picking up old stuff. She replied, "Fine." She wasn't home when I arrived. Mom was in the kitchen, ignoring me. I went to the basement, which felt like a hotel, welcome signs, brochure holders, a locked cabinet labeled supplies. Do not touch. I found a box behind the washing machine with sheets, Wi-Fi passwords, blank feedback forms, and the guest book, pages of names, dates, and reviews like cozy stay. Love the location. I photographed every page and left without a word. That night, Grandpa and I reviewed everything. He said, "They want to make this public? Let's give them something to talk about." His lawyer filed to enforce and shorten the 60-day notice due to unauthorized subleasing. The court agreed. giving them 14 days. I expected panic, apologies, maybe begging. Instead, silence. No calls, no texts. Lindsay deleted her stories. Mom shut down her Facebook. Dad said nothing. I drove by a few days later, boxes in the garage, tape, blankets over furniture. They were packing. On the final day, Grandpa and I stayed away. A neighbor said they left quietly, faces tight. He left under a cracked flower pot. Grandpa offered me the house. I said no. My apartment, my life, it's mine, no guilt attached. He nodded, proud, and said, now they live like normal people. Work, rent, try. Not bitter, just true. The house stayed empty. But the story wasn't over. The family started piecing it together, and what they did next buried my parents' pity party for good. At Aunt Julie's annual barbecue, people whispered. Cousin Jacob asked, they're really out, huh? I nodded. He said Lindsay tried to list a fake apartment on Facebook Marketplace, using stolen photos. It got flagged and removed. She was couch surfing now. My parents? In a one-bedroom duplex, working part-time. Dad at an auto parts store, Mom on customer service calls. No more leisurely mornings on Grandpa's deck. Julie said the family felt lied to, especially after Grandpa's email. Mom's attempts to clarify only made it worse. 2 days later, on Grandpa's porch, surrounded by his new vegetable garden, he asked again if I wanted the house. I said no, it was never mine, just a place full of someone else's memories. He smiled and said, sometimes peace comes not from who leaves, but who you let go of. My parents pay rent now because they have to. Lindsay's learning life isn't free. The family's sympathy for them faded. I live my life. Work, bills, dinners in my own kitchen. No more late-night calls for help. The storm passed, the truth stood, and the noise collapsed. Funny how that works. Last Thursday, an envelope arrived with no return address, just my name. Inside was a 4-page letter from my dad, manipulative and calculated. He claimed they were devastated, said Lindsay was suffering and might spiral if things didn't change. No direct ask for money, but he included a loan application, half filled with my info in pencil. I stared, stunned. They were trying to use my credit after everything. Eviction, public drama, family fallout. I didn't respond. Dropped it off at Grandpa's. He looked at it, nodded, and called his lawyer to ensure his estate, house, land, savings, would protect me, not them. I didn't ask for it, but I didn't argue. The house stays empty. Grandpa likes the quiet. Lindsay's coaching gigs on Instagram are failing. My parents are in their duplex. Dad's working another job. Mom's barely online. They know the door's shut. Some people don't just cross boundaries. They act like they never existed. I don't owe them explanations or reactions. I owe myself the space to move on. And I am.